Hey guys, welcome to the Raised Rowdy podcast. My name is Kurt Ozan.
I'm Nicky T.
We have our super talented guest, Caylee Hammack, joining us today.
Hi.
Hey.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming and being here. I'm sorry that there was traffic on the way.
That's totally okay. Let's pop
Cheers.
a top.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, it's the cutest thing in the world that you both are wearing my dad's business hat.
Yeah.
It's business time.
It's
Business.
business time.
Yes.
I'd love to say that wasn't planned, but it definitely was.
Yeah, I was like, let's wear the hats.
He's
Okay.
like, should we both wear the hats? I'm like, I'm down. Yeah.
I love it. I should have worn
Absolutely.
my hat.
Yes. Well, I told her I was going to wear that sweater. I have a Caylee Hammack sweater with like your face on it, like super huge, and I forgot it.
She might have killed you.
I know.
I'm glad that we're here with the Hammack Well hats instead of the Caylee Hammack sweatshirt.
They do look great.
It's a little much. It's a little much. Looking back now, some of our merch choices, I kind of wonder. Just a little bit.
Hey, that happens, though. It's all part of the growth.
What's the weirdest merch piece y'all have ever made?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I have
do
some
that.
weird ones that we've made. One, I have a mulleted man with no sleeves riding a gigantic raccoon with a wrestling belt on, T-Rex is in the background, and the landscape is on the moon. That's
great,
probably the
though.
weirdest one.
I've gotten a lot of good Raised Rowdy like merch and stuff,
Yeah.
but
Chris
I don't
Harris
have
used to-
that one.
Yeah, Chris Harris used to wear it all the time.
I love him.
It's a print to order though because it's like 75 colors on it. So we've never like had them at events in town. They're just on the website.
Okay. Well, I
But
need
that-
to check it out.
That's probably the most ridiculous one.
There's been some ones that we might not talk about on the podcast right now. I feel like maybe like during COVID or something. Didn't you have one? You're like, yeah, we can't ever make this again.
Oh, I make sample teas just for me sometimes.
Okay.
I'll talk about that one.
Okay, I don't remember what it was.
It
specifically.
said I went to this concert and all I got was the coronavirus.
Oh yeah. Okay, what's that?
Was like, I mean, you know, it's pretty bad, but
I was waiting for like a Raised Rowdy vibrator or like something like.
Whoa.
we've never done anything incredibly degenerate.
Lighters.
Yeah, we do clipper lighters.
Okay.
You know, we were
Rolling
gonna
papers?
do. We've never done rolling papers just because I like cones. I'm a cone guy. You know,
Raised Rowdy Coons.
that would be great. I'd be in on that.
Who do we talk to for that?
I don't know.
Charlie. Charlie work.
Charlie doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
We can figure it out. When I worked over at Hicks Tape, I made rolling papers for the Hicks Tape brand, and we sent out like care packages to all the Hicks Tape artists that we know smoked, and it had like a grinder in it, like one of those like longer lighters, like with the like extender, so you don't have to like get your finger.
Oh, look,
messed
the
up.
Martha Stewart Snoop Dogg collab lighter.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it had Bob Marley on it, and then we had grinder.
God bless.
I smoke weed T-shirt. It was pretty blessed, and then some munchies in there.
I remember feeling very edgy when I put marijuana leaves on the high school high shirt. And then like older ladies would wear it. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. Because these women look and act a lot like my mother. And I was scared of what my mother would think. And I was like, these ladies are cool with it.
Hey, sometimes old ladies, not that your mom's old,
Are the
but
coolest.
they're
They're my
yes.
favorites.
And also they smoke weed.
Yeah. Also, their give a fuck goes down.
Yeah,
As you get
like,
older.
I just want to feel good.
I think that's
Yeah.
why I do have a lot of older like female friends.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yes, they just have life figured out. I call them a certain group of them are around 50 to 60. And they're my wise ages.
I like that.
Yeah.
You also kind of have an older soul, I would say,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ancient. I have arthritis in my heart,
in your soul.
in my soul.
I just have regular arthritis.
Yeah, in your shoulders from football days.
Yeah. Knees and shoulders. Knees and shoulders.
Well, thank you for coming on. So let's talk about some of the exciting, fun stuff that you got going on. There's so much I don't even know where to start. But I will say I got to hear you cut your radio show a little bit, and I'd want to hear more about the XM thing and how that came about, and what's it like being a radio star.
Yeah, that was really funny. That was the first time I've ever had anyone watching me as I cut my liners. And I realized I talk a lot with my hands for a freaking radio show. But if I'm not doing this, I can't get the smile and the sound. So anyway, Sirius XM.
You can definitely turn it on, like it's like a little more southern.
There's something.
Yeah.
And I don't really even mean to, but it comes out. Anyways, Sirius XM kind of came to be because I was hosting around And I've been told I was hosting it, I think like the day before. And I was in Glam that morning. And I said, hey, like, did they send a script over? And they said, not yet, but it's all going to be, tracked. It's not going to be on camera. And we're going to take breaks between for the sound breaks, segments. It'll be fine. You can just read it off the paper. But something in my gut that day was like, learn the script. Ask again for the script. So during Glam, finally get it, and I just read through it. I get there, and they're like, okay, we're going to videotape it. It's just a one run through. And it was my first time getting to experience Meg Maroney and Mackenzie Carpenter. Oh. And so I love their music, and I think they're both just bright souls. And then Brittany Spencer, who is just one of my older friends in town that I love dearly. I think she's one of the most talented humans I've met vocally. And so I got to do that round. And then after that, as I was leaving, one of the head folks there at the time said, you should host a show here. And I was like, as long as I could talk about the artists that I love that have helped me, inspired me, and made me want to do this, I could keep talking. So let me know if you need someone to host a show. And then they actually said, yes, we need someone to host the show. And so they said, we like to have an artist. Kelly Pickler did it for a long while. And they said, we like to have an artist point of view, and you bring in your friends and you just tell your stories. And so, I started doing it. And yesterday I tracked episode 63. So we're doing it. It's a weekly show. It's Friday, Saturday, and Tuesdays from 3 to 6 on SiriusXM Prime Country. And I just tell a lot of stories and try to get away with as much as possible.
That's cool.
Hell yeah.
You just recorded at the house?
Yeah, I recorded at my house.
Cool.
If I have guests, I bring them into the SiriusXM studios. So, I'm stuttering. So it looks just a little bit more professional.
Yeah, makes sense.
Nick and I had a radio show.
Yeah.
Once in a long, long time ago, I guess.
3 years ago? 2 years ago? I don't know,
but we played you on it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we played Just Friends.
Yep. I love that song still.
Yeah. And that was cool. I didn't know what I was doing. Nick knew a little bit more.
No, I didn't know what I was doing either. They just gave me a radio show because they were like, you don't sound like you should be on the radio. We're going to put you on the radio. It was awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
Anya Hammer and I were talking about that. She has a show on the highway at Sirius, and we were talking about how long it took before you finally wear off that. Oh, and I am a talk show host, and I am supposed to talk like this, and this is how we're going to do it. And when does it go into, all right, what's up, everybody? We're back in the studio today. It's that, when does the casualness, the comfortability come? And she said it was probably a year in, and I feel like for me it was show 40 for some reason. 40 was the moment, but I remember getting sat down by the editor and producer, and I thought that I was in trouble. We were around show 40. It was right before that, actually. But the editor said, hey, I just want to let you know that you can tell your stories. He was like, I can tell that you hold back in certain moments because you think you need to give the facts of where the song went on the Hot Billboard charts and where it went on this and when did it release and what year are we in when we're talking about this song. And he was like, the people are connecting the most to your stories. It's the episodes you do with your friends, or you're talking about your friends and how much y'all love this artist. And he was like, we don't need Wikipedia segments. I don't need to know if a song goes to number 2. I need a story that someone will remember. Yeah. And I started on the show kind of very much doing more like Wikipedia-based stuff, like giving more facts and stuff, because I love facts behind the songs and the stories. But then one day randomly, I talked about finding 3 little raccoons, babies, and having to keep them for 10 days alive in between CMA Fest and touring, and until I could find a rehabber to take them, which I'm still getting videos of them. So right now they have made a friend with a possum, and they all come back and feed every now and then at her place. But anyways, so I talked about them, and I was like, I'm feeding babies, goat milk or Enfamil every 2 hours. And I said, this is just where I am right now. So if I seem tired, that's why. And so many people came up to me in the next few months and was like, do you still have those raccoons? And that's when I realized people connect to personality. People connect to personal stories more so than the facts, even though I'm a nerd and I like the facts.
Yeah. And I think that relates to songwriting too. It's the most personal songs seem to be the ones that hit the home the most, whether it's a story that you can even directly relate to, or you find moments in personal stories that you can relate to.
Yeah, I have found that out with the first album, actually. I used to never look at numbers because I was like, I didn't get into this for numbers. I didn't get in this for money. I didn't get into this for stats. I got into this because I wanted to create the music that helped me, the songs that you can go to when you need a certain type of song, whether it's a sad song that comforts you or an upbeat song that just gets your mind off whatever it is you're going through. And it just was one of those things that in the first album, I put some upbeat stuff on that record, trying to sell that record, trying to get into these concerts and get these tours where you need that upbeat feeling. You need to get people up off their feet and interested as the first of 3 on a big tour. And so going into it with that, and then also adding in these vulnerable storytelling, more, picking songs, I looked back and I looked at my royalties and I realized that the most vulnerable of the songs, the hardest to write and the most intimate as far as the stories, were the ones that quadrupled or 5-timed the amount of spins and reach of the up-tempo ones that I thought were going to be the ones that got me to the masses, and then maybe they'd come back and fall in love with the storytelling. But I figured out that people connected initially to the storytelling, and so I tried to lean into that with this record. Bed of Roses is very much more songwriter-centered, and one thing that I talked with my management and my publishing house and my label when we first started picking these songs was, it's not truly a concept album. We're picking the best songs that you've written. These are the best ones we have. Put them all together and tell a story throughout them. And it's been nice to center into what the song is itself versus what do I think will help me get to the point that I can make the music that I want to.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it is just being able to get to do what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? Having that creative expression. And I know we kind of talked about this before, but when I listen to the new record, it feels like art. It feels like stories. It feels like personal to you, but also hits home. And the production's on it's super cool as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like putting little tasty bits into the production.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun because I got to work with 2 different master classes of humans, like just geniuses, Dan Huff and then John Osborne. It was special. I learned something in every single song we've made on this record. And throughout the system, and process of writing it, I kind of felt cathartic release, I guess. Cathartic. I don't know why I said that so hard, but cathartic release. And then putting it out in production, it was just kind of an exploration, creativity, or creatively wise. I'm stumbling on my words, but it's something that I'm very excited. I think that it took 5 years to make this record. My first one was in 2020, and it took that because I needed that. I had to kind of accumulate all the stories and the songs, and I'm glad that I am exactly 30 when I get to put this out because there is something very, rounding out, all-encompassing of my 20s to 30s and the lessons that I've learned in that time. And I feel like I've put almost all of them on this record.
I love that.
It's like kind of putting a bow on that decade of your life.
Yeah, it feels like I get to package it now and share those stories with other people. And I always tell people in interviews, and it shows that as songwriters, we are just normal human beings that normally are a little bit wackier because we got in such a crazy industry that kind of works off your emotions and feeds off your emotions. But the thing is, all of us go through similar heartbreaks. We all have that big first break. We all have that person that keeps coming around or you just can't let go of. And for a little bit at a time, normally 3 minutes and 30 seconds, we get to try and make you feel a little less alone in whatever that heartbreak is. And I hope that I did that with this album, with the accumulation of songs in Bed of Roses. I want to be that for someone, is that safe space they can go to when they need the music.
I think you absolutely did.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a journey. Like the album, there's heartbreak, there's proud moments, there's a little bit of everything in it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a little sadness, a little sexy funkiness in there,
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Is there one song on the record that changed more from like the writing to the production than the rest?
Ooh. The Hill probably was the one that changed the absolute most. We knew that we wanted a signature little lick in there. We wanted it a little Celtic influenced, but I was nervous of how far we could take it. And after going to Scotland and listening to the radio for a week as I went solo hiking and traveled around a lot, and I just really immersed myself in the time there, in the space there, and the people there. And through that, I realized I have a really big fan base over there, and I could do Celtic influences in songs and it relate, and hopefully people would like it. So yeah, it was cool to see the development of that one. That was probably the one that came the furthest.
Yeah, I think that sound and country music are cousins.
Yes,
you
very
know,
much
like
so.
if not closer. Especially like you look at like traditional like Irish music and bluegrass. It's like they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So hearing Janae's fiddle part on that, it is Celtic sounding, but it doesn't sound like it's not in the country world at all.
Janae is so good. Ah,
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing when you move to Nashville and you start working with some of these people, that it's just fascinating when you're able to sing something to someone and they can take that, transcribe it into their brain and translate it, and then make it better and do their own clever little unique thing to it.
It's crazy.
But there's so many different creators. I never realized that when I was a kid. I thought that if you wanted to be an artist, you had to write your own songs and you had to play, along with yourself. And I just was very naive to how it all worked. And then I realized how many dreams it takes to really make one big dream that you see on that award show, how many dreams it took of people working towards fulfilling it for you to see that one person take the award, but how many people get to walk away a victor because of that.
Yeah.
I'm still naive to a lot of it, honestly.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that, like, when I worked at Big Loud that I'd noticed is, like, it takes an army. And it's not just a label army. It's a management team army. It's the publishing side of things army. It's, it's everyone. And that's these records that get to the masses, that really, like, break through. They're paying attention to every detail. It's the font. It's the color of red that is on the thing. It's like, and there's details behind all of that. It's so interesting to me. It seems as the fan, you just notice it looks great.
Yeah.
You just
don't
notice
think about how
you're
much
drawn to it.
time
Yeah.
and money. I mean, goodness gracious, the more designers you bring in and stuff, like, that's kind of a weird side of it. Is like I see a lot of younger creators using AI and stuff, and then people will go, well, you need to use real people, and it's like, well, that would have cost me $3,000 to bring in those people to do those jobs. And it's like, as creators, you're not really making much money, so it's always a hard conflicting thing there. But
I know you're not using AI on stuff though. Like I've
No,
watched
I'm
you
not.
draw the logos for things like that. Like, on a
But
piece of
what if
paper.
I couldn't? Like
Yeah.
the only reason I draw my logo and stuff is I feel pressure of I try to relate it to someone. And now I have people like in my visuals that I love dearly, and they really help me and they help me create the vision. But before I would be like, no, I want it this way, and they'd send it back a sketch of some designer I wouldn't even get to talk to directly. And because the label would use those people or whatever it was, some reason. And then I would get it back and it wasn't right. So it was kind of one of those things like, okay, fine, let me just do it. And, but then I'll be honest, when I started creating some of my album artwork and stuff, I started losing a joy of painting. I just stopped. And that was kind of sad. And that's one thing that I like to encourage some of my friends that work in this industry or whatever it is. If you are getting to make money using your passion and doing your passion every day, I do think that it's really important to have hobbies that are just yours and that's no one else's, and you're not going to share it with anyone else. And I think now painting is kind of that for me. I do design merch and stuff, and I enjoy doing that. But, I got asked one time to do an album artwork, and I did Small Town Hypocrite. I drew the trailer that my mom and daddy started in, but I got asked to do another one, and I was like, I just can't. I get too into my head about my visual art. I don't feel as if it is where I want it. But, another thing is, like, we were at your parents' house and we were listening to Joni Mitchell, and we're opening up her different albums, and it's all her designing. It's all multimedia. And then there's that childhood part of me that's like, isn't this what you've always wanted to do? You're just too damn scared. And I'm like, ouch. And then I shut it and I put it away.
Ouch.
But yeah, sometimes it's funny how the child in you will yell at yourself and go, but don't you like painting? Why are you so scared of someone else judging it?
Yeah.
It's a strange thing. And I talk about this like with Raise Rowdy. It's like everything I used to do for fun is now work.
Yeah.
Everything. I don't have hobbies. Hobbies is video games a little bit. That's it.
And you're about to start doing streaming, right?
Yeah.
So now it's about to become work.
Well, I'm not going to do video game streaming.
Okay.
Yeah. But I really struggled with finding something that's not this.
What do you think it is for you? Like,
I don't
what's
know.
something that actually loosens you up
I don't know.
other than y'all going to see
Smoking
wrestling?
pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
hobby,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like time to myself because, like, I'm overwhelmed emotionally sometimes. Like, my ears, just I'm around too much
Silence.
noise. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm using that more, but, like, it's hard because, like, music was my release. That was what I did with my friends to get away from everything. And now, if I'm at an event, I have 100 people trying to talk to me, which is great. Means the stuff we're doing is working, but it's like, it's frustrating at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even like sometimes I'll have like thoughts about complaining like in my head, and I know like I shouldn't, but that's just human nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I remember one time we were flying home we played a show Seattle. It was like one of the coolest shows I've ever played in my entire life. But we had like 5 a.m. lobby call, and I was
Yeah.
like getting up at 4:45 in the morning. You know, after we played till 11, and
Yeah.
then I'm like, fuck, like this sucks. You know, in my head, I'm like, well, this is what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention the crew that were like loading out till 2 in the morning, you know, or whatever. So it's like, but it's just human nature to just like, no matter what, sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, you always want to get better and deal with stuff we don't like less. It doesn't matter how good you have it.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens, you know? It's like, with the hobby thing, it's like, I used to love doing photography and I still do in certain scenarios, but like I used to bring my camera everywhere and like I would fly with my camera when we played gigs and like photograph the openers. Then it's like once you get to the point where you can like kind of do it, then it's just like I don't want to sit on the bus after the show and like edit photos.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad for a little bit you did because that's how we met.
That is true, actually. We met, at least. I mean, I knew who you were, of course, but we physically met in. I shouldn't have said physically, but in Berlin is when I first met on.
2020.
Yeah, in 2020,
March
touring of March
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't single then. But
Yeah. He had to ruin the fantasy. I looked him up online later. I was like, who is this? And then I was like, well, that's not a tree I can bark up. There's already a raccoon up there. But yeah,
funny.
but time works out.
yeah, now we're all
And-
booed up.
Also, going back to the idea of like living the dream and still being grateful and everything. I wrote this song. Reason why I want to get back to it is I wrote this song with Tennille Towns, and actually yesterday I sent it to her and I was like, we're really good. We're good at writing
Yeah.
songs
Hell
together. And
yeah.
it felt really good when you have those moments as a writer because you either love the songs that you just wrote or you go through a phase where you're like, I'll never write a good song in my life. But this one, it's just like, it's living the dream. And it's like, I'm growing, I'm showing my age. I'm right on the edge, about to break. I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream. And it's just all about like, I think there's two sides of it.
Insane.
I think there's two sides to it. There is a sense of gratefulness that we always need to have because how many people would give anything to get to make music and work around music every single day.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
if you are listening and say you want to get into music, and that's why you listen to these musical podcasts, there are so many more jobs included in the music industry that are not ones that jump out to you online, but there is always a job. If you love country music, you can find a job within this industry doing something to help country music get out to the masses. But I think that I struggled at first with how hard it was on radio tour and the stresses of things. And I remember Luke Bryan telling me one time, he called me because I was in between Sony Warner and Universal at the time for a deal. And they're courting me, and it was one of those things. I just went through a house fire where I'd lost, pretty much everything, and kind of was self-reflecting a lot, taking my whole life into account. All of a sudden, my manager signs me, and all these labels are like, oh, you are just beep, beep, bop, bop, bop. They just tell you all the nicest things in the entire world, and they're trying to sign you. That's their job. They're
probably
bidding
true,
for
though.
you. Well, I think you're a little biased, baby. But the thing is, I remember being a little conflicted and confused on like who was really having good, intentions in that time. And I don't know. I remember telling Luke when he called me that day, because Mike Dungan at Universal set him up for that and told him, hey, we're trying to sign this girl. Call her because you have a connection with him. And I asked Luke, I said, I'm just really stressed out right now. And I don't know what the decision is. And making a decision like this big, it terrifies me. And I don't know how to handle it. And I'm not ready to handle it. I don't know. I don't know if I am. And he said, the stress will never leave. You'll learn how to manage it better. But every day as an artist, you're going to have new stresses and new pressures and new decisions that you have to make. And they're all going to feel big and important. And he's like, you'll get better at handling it. But then your next worry is going to be, well, what single do I put out? Okay, now I have hits. Well, now what's the next song that will hit and impact people in the way I want? And he said, that stress stays, but you will get better at managing it. Okay. And so I think it's nice as an artist to kind of remember that living the dream does not mean that it's going to be easy. So there's something that my therapist told me, that there is a way that you can kind of sit in a place of gratefulness while also acknowledging that this isn't always easy. And I remember going into therapy. There's a place in Nashville, if you're a young artist and you're struggling right now, in Nashville, there's a place called Porter's Call. And it is a therapy place that is just for touring musicians and artists. And you do a little $5, $10, $20 donation, and you can go there for free and talk to someone. And so after the house fire, I started going, and I see a lady named Beth, and she's a godsend, truly an angel on earth. And I remember I was talking about these pressures, and at this point, I remember telling her at one point, I said, I haven't had time to do laundry or go to the grocery store. I haven't had food in my house for 2 days. I've been eating saltine crackers and biscotti cookies I got on my flights. I was like, I am literally so stressed out on time. I don't even have time to go buy food and do all of this. But I mean, I signed up for this. And my almost like the breaker flipping was always, no, it's fine. I signed up for this. I kept telling myself that. And I remember the first time that she grabbed my hand and she goes, you did not sign up for this. And just that feeling of that acknowledgement of, no, you signed up to do what you feel you're good at, to try to share it with others, but you did not sign up for a stalker to know where you live and make you scared. You did not sign up for the 4 a.m. lobby calls after a show that ends at 2. You did not sign up. You didn't know about those things. It's okay to be frustrated sometimes and live this life. And I just think that was really validating. I think sometimes the biggest thing is, at least in my opinion, artists are animals of encouragement. And sometimes it's just validation. Like, there's been moments where I have texted Ashley, like writing this book, finishing the album, doing the promotion, working on the art for it, and also doing the SiriusXM show and navigating life and stuff. I text her one day, and I don't even remember what I said. It was kind of a manic rant. But I just remember saying, like, I just feel kind of alone in this, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, and I need advice on this, and da-da-da-da. And I'm just going crazy, trying to find a location for a shoot, actually. That was what I was doing. I called because I was like, can I use your property? And do you know of anyone? And the one thing she said in that text that really resounded with me was, you are not alone in this, and you are heard. And that just can mean, and I don't mean just for musicians, I mean anyone. Sometimes the one thing you need when you go to someone and you're stressed out is just hearing, I hear you and I understand, and you're not alone. And Ashley McBride is the personification of you are not alone.
She's so great.
She's perfect.
She's so like wise.
Oh my God, wise beyond her years.
Yeah, I love her.
And also, like, I mean, she can sit down and start playing sea chanties. And you're just like, okay, that's the 8th one you've done without missing a lick or a lyric. There's 6 stanzas, Ashley. I mean, she's just a plethora of good news and good knowledge, I feel like.
Just warm heart, too.
Yes.
And good at music also.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's real good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that's also something I always wanted was a family in country music. Mm-hmm. And God has definitely provided that. I mean, Ashley is one of those people that I know I can always rely on and depend on. And I have Miranda to thank for that. I mean, I wouldn't have met Ashley if it hadn't been for Miranda. And so she's helped me build my little family. And Tennille Towns is part of that family. And Meg McCree is part of my little family. And I don't get to hang out with her as much. She's on the road so much. But it's been cool to get to talk about some of my girlfriends because they've written on this record with me. And yeah, I think there's really a lot of good blood and good music in Nashville, Tennessee.
There really is. The community aspect of this town is something that I like understood, but I didn't really get till I got here.
Yeah.
And just how it does take a family. It takes an army and a family, and usually it's the same people in both, you know, to get that done.
Yeah, it's funny to see sort of like groups of folks. It's like, I don't want to say clique because that has like a negative sort of connotation, but it's like people like become like a little family and they write together and they like help each other and like their tide raises each other's ships and all this and that, you know. It's kind of like, you know, obviously I play for Luke, so it's like watching him write with the same guys that didn't have deals and cut songs and then helping them get deals and, you know, like you're playing show with Ray, you know, all these different things like that. It's just cool.
Yeah.
It's fun because I remember moving to town. It's like, it's weird when you move to town, you don't know anyone. I'm like, who's going to be my friends here? And luckily, I think it's easy to make friends through music. For whatever reason, it's sort of like there's some sort of fellowship. When you play music with someone, it's like a handshake and a hug all like in one. I don't know. I can't explain it. But like when you really play music with someone and it works out good, then it's like, you're cool. You know what I mean? Or like, you're
a
cool.
Stamp of approval almost comes across. Yeah.
Well,
same way with writing with people. If I write well with someone, I remember writing with a guy. I love this man, Thomas Fincham, and he, we became friends years after, and he was actually one of the people that helped me through the fire. But yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, first time he ever sang, I was like, "You're good." And then we randomly got paired up at ASCAP to write together, and I was like, "Oh, you're really good." And I literally looked at him and I was like, "We should be friends. We should write more." And he was like, "Yeah." And that's just how it started. Sometimes the best friendships come from the creativity you share.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut you off, Nick.
No, you're good.
I mean, Nick and I became friends through music, essentially.
Yeah. I feel like that's not even just music, too. 'Cause if you're thinking of like what makes you friends with people, it's usually shared experiences. It's shared things that you love. It's just in this town, we're all here because we love music.
Yeah. I think it's also a town of black sheep.
Yeah.
Or folks that have, you know, it took a little while longer for them to find their path. I think a lot of people found themselves in Nashville. But, yeah, I remember the first few years I got here. The first 2 years especially were so lonely. And so when people DM me and they tell me, like, yeah, I just moved to Nashville, I'm trying it, I'm like, the first few years may be hard, but I promise you by year 3, you'll have a couple people in your tribe that will just be family, and you'll have family here. And I was like, just hold out, just try to make it through 2 years, because it's funny, a lot of my friends, it's like the first 2 years is the absolute loneliest, but it doesn't stay lonely for long.
Yeah. I feel like I didn't have that because I had like the Raise Rowdy cheat code when I moved to town.
Raise Rowdy cheat code, I love that.
Well, I was, 3 or 4 years into doing that. So I had I remember Derek being like, you know more people than you knew in Pittsburgh in Nashville, which just seems crazy, but honestly was probably true.
I had a few friends when I moved to town that I knew through college. But when I moved here, I was going to Belmont for my master's. And so I was playing in groups and stuff there. So I just became friends with the kids in my class. There's probably 8 or 10 kids like in my graduating class.
Yeah.
Of like, me and another guitar player, drummer, piano, couple horn players, like that kind of thing. So we would always hang out, and then it kind of like, then I kind of found more people, and then I met Rob, and then I met Luke, and
voila, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. How many years ago was that? 2012? Jeez.
Gosh.
13. This August will be 13 years in town.
Wow, lucky number 13.
I used to be like the kid that just moved to town, and like I would go and play somewhere. Like, man, you sound great. How long have you been in town? I'm like, 6 months, and they're like, whoa. And now I'm like, they're like, so like, I'm thinking about moving. You've been there for like so long. People hit me up for questions, and I'm like, oh my god, getting old.
Yeah.
It's better than the alternative, though.
That's true.
True.
I'm in the middle of growing up and getting old.
Yeah.
You're doing really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I moved here, I was 19, and mine was a different experience. But I called like Tootsies and stuff kind of my college, my honky tonk college, because I wish now that I had somehow went back. What?
I'm just like, that's got to be a song title or something. But like some like really cheesy beer drinking song.
Yeah, of course. It has to be a little cheese in that beer.
Yeah.
But no, like, so I was 19 and I was like just trying to find myself. I had a fake ID, went downtown. I've told this story many a time. But don't listen, mama. But anyways, yeah. And I just remember having to try to find friends like from Broadway and stuff. And that was my first experience because I wasn't in class sessions. So I didn't really get grouped with people that were similar to me. I mean, when I went into Tootsie's and Honky Tonk Central and Rippy's, that was the three places that the same folks owned. And yeah, everyone already kind of had their cliques and stuff. So it was really hard to find my path there. But I realized at that time, this moment of when I made friends, though, it was like an instantaneous click. Oh my gosh, we have so much in common. And I realized that back home, I was friends with all 43 people that were in my graduating class. But we knew each other from pre-K to 12th grade, 13, 14 years of class. We went through all of that together. Of course, we were going to be friends. And like, I'm still friends with people back home. But what I'm saying was, I remember going, I'm not just put in a group now and I can just be like, okay, well, one of you will be my friend in this room. I'm sure of it. Instead, I'm like, the world is so damn big. And I used to go to Green Hills Mall back before it was too bougie that I can't afford it. It's funny, like it scaled up with me. I couldn't afford it back then, and now I really can't afford it. But I used to just walk around and window shop and dream of like, if I could have a stage outfit, well, I would get that, and I'd put feathers on it, and I'd bedazzle the bustier, and I'd do this to it, and and then I'd go to work, and I'd go home, and I'd play guitar, or I'd try to figure out ways to videotape stuff, or I'd play thousands of hours of Sims. I look back and I'm like, God, if I could have invested that money or that time, I guess, into guitar or something else instead of 2,300 hours on a Sims game. But anyway, yeah, I was.
Hey, we all have our vices.
Yeah.
Just yours is Sims and not like needle drugs. You're doing great.
Well, when I tell people about Sims, sometimes people are like the game where you control people, and I'm like, no, that wasn't it. But as a control freak, that at 19 to 23, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I still don't know sometimes, but at that time especially. And I was in this basement apartment that had like one window, and I bought all these plants one summer, and all of them died because there was no freaking light. And so I'm a little low, What I would do is I'd go on Sims at night, and I'd get a little inebriated in my ways, and I would just sit there. And I would make people, and I would give them a great house, and I'd give them great jobs, and I'd sit there and build their skills up, and then use a cheat code and get them a lot of money. And then I'd be like, here, I made your life good. I am a success. I just built a successful bakery in 12 hours. So, but yeah, then I'd look back up and wait for a phone call to see if I was going to get a gig that night for $100 or whatever, you know? Living the dream, baby, living the dream.
Right. I used to play SimCity 2000. That game was super fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever played that?
Yeah, but not for a long time.
Yeah. It's like a nerdy video game for sure.
Yeah.
Sims right now, the reason why I was like, if you're streaming games, is that going to take it away? Because I'm currently a little stressed out about a video game. Sims, actually. I've decided to start creating the town of Homestead, which is the town that is in the romance novel I wrote to pair with this album.
Yeah.
And that book's called Bed of Roses. The little town is in Texas. And so I got on Sims because I have a song on Sims. And I started creating a town. But it's so funny, like, Kirk says, hey, I'm going to come over. And I'm like, well, I got to build the basement to the bookshop tonight. So, and I can't find this freaking lamp that I saw in my head. And so I wrote that lamp into the story, and I can't find the damn lamp. And so I'm just sitting there scrolling through light fixtures on Sims 4 for so long. And so right now I'm building the town, but building a trailer park from scratch is actually a lot harder than you'd think, even though I think it's hilarious that I'm building a trailer park in a video game right now, because my hometown, Ellaville, we are known as a single-wide distributor. And so a lot of the Live Nation shows that you have the trailers in the back of the amphitheaters, They're from Ellaville, Georgia.
It's funny as heck.
We made it.
Yeah. That's bragging rights.
Video games have been a release for me. Like I remember in college, I played with my brothers. So that was like early days of headphone like conversations.
Oh, yeah. What were y'all playing?
SOCOM. PlayStation. It's like Call of Duty vibes.
Yeah.
But it's like a Navy SEAL game. And it had push to talk headset. So boys don't talk on the phone that much. You know, like me and Kurt might have like a 5-minute conversation, but we don't talk on the phone, you know. But I'll sit on video games and talk to my brothers at that time. And then now
For
it's
hours,
just
right?
For hours. Yeah, for 4 hours. And we're just busting each other's chops and talking inside jokes and
Hey, go shoot that terrorist over there.
yeah. And just doing silly stuff, you know. And it was like super fun. And I remember my brothers kind of, you know, as they got older and had kids and, you know, stopped playing. And so I kind of stopped playing too, you know?
The only time I play Oculus is if my brother, who has 2 kids, when they go to bed and he has like the day off the next day or something, he's a school teacher, he'll like text me at 11:30 and be like, you want to go shoot some zombies? And then we go play it. I'm like, this is our Halo.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then I got a PlayStation when I stopped drinking as much because I was like, this will give me something to do.
This will be my fix.
Yeah, I can do this. And my brother Steve said that he was still playing, so I was like, sick. I'll get to like chat with Steve on there. He doesn't play. Yeah, but
He's a grown boy.
Yeah. I found some buddies that did. So now I play like Fortnite with some of my songwriter buddies, and I've met folks through it, like artists, songwriters. You know what I mean? It's an interesting thing, and it is like okay, I got home at the end of the night, and now I can just like dance on this video game while trying to murder these kids that are probably 13 and are way better at this video game than me, you know?
And it was funny because we had Dalton Dover on the podcast, and
Yeah.
we had a great time, and he's just like one of the nicest dudes ever.
He really is.
And so I'm like, oh, let's like exchange numbers. And so we changed numbers, and I didn't, but I had already had his number because he's in our Fortnite group chat already.
Oh my
And I didn't even
Kurt,
know.
we should probably take you out of that. Kurt doesn't even really play, but he's in all the group
I
texts.
have his Nintendo Switch with Fortnite on it. I know he's not playing it.
Yeah.
I'm just in Zelda land,
Yeah,
getting ready
That's
to
a
kill
good-
Ganon.
Yeah,
that's a good land, though.
That's true.
Yeah, I definitely, video games were a big part of my childhood. And my brother, actually, I learned how to read, really, from walkthroughs. Back in the day when you used to print it, and then people on the forums, they would use asterisks and dashes to make the whole face of Leon from Resident Evil, and then that would use all the printer ink, and you're like, damn it, what do I do when I get to page 54? And anyways, yeah, I used to sit there underneath a lamp, and my brother would play Resident Evil 1, and he's like, I'm shaking because he'd be like, okay, where do I go? And something's after him, and I'm like, go to the blue door. And if you know Resident Evil 1, the blue door is instant death. And then the monster comes out. There's this one door. It's like a trap that if you go to that door, a giant dog eats you, and it's game over. You got to start over. And so anyways, and he's like, I'm dead. And I'm like, the black door, I'm sorry. So I learned how to read under pressure. But yeah, I don't know. Some of those games were really pivotal in my childhood. And one thing that I thought was cool musically that connected back to some of those games, Konami games are some of my favorites. And Silent Hill is one of the main series from them. And something that I learned through them was I would get so stressed out in that game because the soundtrack would come up and it's all, you know, these really weird dissonant notes. And it's just like so much anxiety is rising in this production, and it's just crescendoing into this thing. And you're walking down a hallway, and I'd have to stop. I mean, I would just like, my heart's beating out of my chest, and then the music would all soothe away. And I go, oh, okay, I'm good. And then I'd take the next step and get 8. And what I learned, though, is a lot of different games, they have it so that the music only cues when the actual enemy is coming near. And what they learned as far as the sound design for that game is they could actually play with people psychologically, which is kind of the whole gist of that game. It's a psychological horror. Mm-hmm. But they can mess with people more psychologically if they created a playlist of just an orchestra event that plays throughout the entire game that swells and causes tension at abnormal times. So you actually have no clue what is actually going to come until it's too late. And I was like, you can do that? You can mess with people's emotions with just music? And it's a very silly little epiphany, but I feel like life is a big little jumbled lost and found of little click moments that are very dumb when I look back, but it's like, oh, that's something there. Oh, okay, this is something here. And that was one of those. I was like, you can mess with people psychologically with sound. Wiggly air.
True. I mean, there's a lot of messing with people on this record for sure.
Yeah, and then I learned like what minor chords were, and I was like, oh my God, it's over for them. It's over. Yeah, but this record, I definitely went into some deeper spots, and I tried not to psychologically mess with people, but to psychologically mesh the production with the songwriting. I think that production is just your last final step of the songwriting process, because you're really you get to put it in a package. You get to package up this beautiful product that you've made, this beautiful cake, and frost it. So
yeah, it's like that last delivery, and you could write a great song, but if something's botched on the production, then it just doesn't hit.
It takes away, it can take away the energy so quick. And that's why sometimes a song, it'll be a great song in town, everyone's excited about it. It gets produced, they put it out, and they're like, it's just not hitting the people. And then years later, that same artist will do some acoustic unplugged thing, and it's like, that's how it should be.
I could think of multiple instances of a great song not working out. Obviously, I don't want to name any, really.
Finish that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No.
But
This is a
it's
safe
so
place.
important now. And you're like extremely involved in the production. I know you're not
Yeah, I
like
love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, Dan would let me comp myself and work on my vocal. John was like, no, because I know you, and you're going to pick the perfect take. You're not going to take the personality take, and that's the personality take is what we need. And so it was cool to kind of see the difference, not having to, but getting to kind of have my hands on everything with Dan. As far as vocals, I tracked my vocals in my bedroom, actually. I sat in my bathtub and recorded some of them, and comped them there in my living room. And then after that, we did all of the vocals for the 9 songs with John in the studio at his place. So it was just different kind of elements. But yeah, I think production is like the final land that you get to walk through with that song. And I do not get it how I've heard stories like one of my friends, Sean, shout out to Sean, is a sound engineer, and he's worked in many different studios in town. And I remember one time he engineered on all of the Dan Huff stuff with me. And I remember saying, well, I just feel like I haven't done the song a service if I'm not there every day when we're overdubbing, if we're not there for this and I'm not there for that. And he was like, Caylee, there's been people that we've produced their entire first 3 albums before the artists come in and meet the musicians. There's many different versions and like on the spectrum of how much artists are involved. Like, yes, you can step away in the edit world if you're driving yourself literally crazy and things like that, know? So it's been really cool to work with producers that also are musicians and have kind of been on different sides of the, industry.
Yeah, it's weird because I was last couple recording sessions I've done are like overdubs, which means like it's not like a band cutting all at the same time. It's like I'm going and adding my sprinkles on this cake. I'm steel guitar, so I'm like one of the last instruments that cut on this. And like the artist didn't come. I'm like, if I was putting out a record, you would think that they would want to come. But I would say it's like more often than not they don't.
Yeah.
I think some people have an ear for songwriting and for singing, but if you're not an instrumentalist really, then it's like hard to be productive in that way, I guess.
Yeah. I'm never going to downplay like how musicians and artists and songwriters work towards their art. Like some people want to be, completely connected into it. Some people want to literally hand it over to the sound folks. Like people, you're better with wiggly air than me. I'm good with words, and they kind of step off. But yeah, with John, with John and Dan, I had a lot of moments of learning and having to like trust the process. Dan likes to overdub by himself. John likes to overdub by himself. I've learned a lot of guitar-driven producers do, but I trust both of them. And if I had issues, I would literally sing voice recordings back. But I understand that to a certain degree when it's like overdubbing and you're by yourself and you're putting those last little pieces in, because same way with me doing ad-libs. way better at ad libs if literally the engineer, if say I'm in the studio, the engineer will turn it on and go make a cup of coffee and just let me run through the whole 3 minutes of the song. I can do better ad libs when I know no one's listening. So I kind of work better out of my brain. I have a weird thing. It's hard for me to practice in front of people. I really struggle with that, to the point like I feel bad for my father because relating back to childhood, I would practice piano, but only when everyone left the house. And all he wanted was to listen to his children play the instrument he bought so he could listen to his children play it. And I was like, no. And I loved, this sounds bad, but I loved when everyone left the house. Like they'd go shopping without me or something because I could just sit on the piano and play and play and play and play. And as soon as I'd hear a car door shut outside, I'm done. And I don't know what that is. But if I had a song ready, if I was proud, then I'm like, everyone come here and sit down. I'm going to play it 4 times for you. But yeah, something about practicing. It's just my brain works better creatively too. Creatively?
Creativity, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's the same way. They got a piano put in the house, like an upright, and she's learning piano. But she was nervous to play when my dad could hear. So then my dad bought her keyboard, and she sits with her headphones on and plays all day.
Yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that way with writing as well. I can write the best when, and I think it's also though like energy. I write better when there's absolutely no energy in my vicinity. Like I'm able to access that thing, like that vessel. That.
What do you mean, like
conduit.
energy?
I mean no energy.
Like there's a lot of like masculine energy over here. Is that distracting or?
Yeah, I'm not feeling very inspired right now. No. What I mean is like the ideas don't come to me in the right way. It's like something quiets down in my brain, and a lot of the time, and one of the reasons why I go into like garden influences in this record, I'm in my garden. I'm either talking to God, I'm talking to myself, or I'm not saying anything at all, and I'm pulling weeds, and I'm like, oh my God, that's it. And or I'm sitting down to practice, and then I hit the wrong chord, and I go, well, that would be cool actually if you played it like this and you landed on this. And I don't know. There's something about, for me, I notice also, though, I don't rest as well in an apartment. I don't rest as well in a hotel. Hearing people constantly. I remember the first time I ever stayed at your house, somebody started mowing their lawn, heaven forbid, 3 houses down, and I shot right up because I was like, who's mowing my lawn right now? I've bought a piece of property that I don't really have many neighbors or much sound, and I've realized I kind of just, I'm so used to it that in hotels and stuff, I can't turn off the sound or the energy of the people around me sometimes.
Yeah, especially if you're from a small town.
Yeah,
like
you're
I'm
used
from
to the
like
crowd.
suburbs, so it's like medium. And I have friends that are from like New York that like they can sleep through anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally feel that. Like I lived in a noisy place, and my creative juices were gone.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
A lot
You
better.
got a quiet place now.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a struggle because I'm in an apartment, but nothing like having a mixing room next to your bedroom.
Well, some people live
Yeah.
off of it. Some
Yeah.
people like love the energy. I think once I have an idea, I like to be around other people and get it going. But for some reason, the best and the purest ideas and the ones that I can tell my co-writers get excited when I come in and I'm like, okay, I have a verse chorus ready. And I used to be afraid to do that because I remember bringing a song into a hit writer and I was so excited for it and I like played it for her and then she was like, you should just write that yourself. And I was like, fuck. I mean, sorry. I should but I was like, because this was the idea I had fleshed out for her. It was the first time I ever got to write with her, hit maker. And so, but she was like, no, I'm not going to take your idea. Write that. You've already got it. And so, at that point, I kind of started stumbling, and I was like, I can't bring something in if it's too fleshed out. But Cleopatra on the record was that way. I kind of had verse chorus. I knew where it wanted to go, and I knew that Meg McCree and Jake Mitchell could get it there, and they did. It was so much fun. No, I Ain't kind of had a little bit of it before. Like, what else? A bunch of the songs on the record kind of already was something I was working on at the house. Bed of Roses was the same way. Breaking Dishes, little things like that. But it really, it's something about when you're alone, when you can be still, that something comes out. And I think there's something too spiritual about that. I mean, one huge thing in every single religion that you look at is moments of quiet, silence, whether you want to say time for prayer, time for meditation, time for both. But there's moments of reflection and quiet. And I think because of that, I feel like I'm my purest as far as creatively. So sometimes I just have to go away for a few hours and do it. That's why I take solo hikes. Well, I used to. I haven't done it in a few years, but I'd do 2 or 3 days. I would find a tiny little cabin or a tiny house in the mountains. And I would go and I would bring my dog. I'd bring books. I'd bring an amp and my guitar. And then I'd bring bacon, eggs, and toast. And all I would eat is bacon, egg sandwiches for dinner and breakfast and lunch. And I wrote and I hiked, and that's it. And that's all I would allow myself to do. I think quiet moments of stillness really helps get the sound out.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds so beautiful. Just to go out in the cabin and just chill.
I mean, sometimes you're driven insane because then I'm like, well, I want to call someone or I want to talk to someone or watch a haha video, you know? But no, it's good.
I do enjoy a haha video.
Okay, for people listening, Kurt and I call funny videos like, oh, do you need a little haha tonight? Just one haha video before we go to bed? Yeah. Good ha-has for everyone. Yeah.
Well, why don't we dig a little bit deeper into the book, and then we'll go through the album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the funniest thing I got to share is the one thing that every single, no offense to him, but every dude that has interviewed me in the past few weeks, we've been doing a lot of media, has asked, one of their first questions about the romance novel is, what's the smut level? And I'm like, ask me, my eyes are up here. Ask me about... The plot is up here, okay? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. But,
that's funny.
it's a small town romance. I wanted to create it so if you listen to the album from top to bottom, you get my story. You get my accumulation of life lessons and things I've went through and things I've reflected on. If you listen to the album in reverse, you get Sam, the protagonist in the book. You get her story. And so I did every single chapter as the name of a song. And one of the reasons I loved video games growing up was Easter eggs. I love the thought that there's someone graphic designing 10 hours a day for 2 years to get this freaking game done, and they put this tiny little Easter egg, and I saw it. I found it. And so in the book, I kind of took it as that. I took it as my little video game to design. And so I created little tiny Easter eggs that relay back to the first album, relay back to stories I've told and things I've went through, and also goes into all of these songs. So Cleopatra, there's this like whole story about Egypt and Rome, and so I put in there how it comes to be and where this inspiration comes from by using casual dialogue between the main love interest and the protagonist. So I got to kind of develop Easter eggs, and one of the cool things is I based the bad guy in the book off of pretty much every single one of my exes, and their worst traits combined into one. He's ghastly, but I based the main love interest off of Kurt. I won't lie, all of it was off of him. But yeah, so it's been really cool to get to experience it and also get to put a romance book out while I'm in love. Versus like, it would have really sucked if I was heartbroken and having to be like, this is a small town romance. But it's all about, for me personally, I wanted to write a book that was about someone trusting their intuition and guiding themselves by their gut and how their gut reads things. And also the advice and encouragement of people older than you that kind of want to help guide you, listening into that. So hopefully people like it. I'll be honest, it ain't the smuttiest thing because I have been reading some of that shit y'all have been reading. And it is bad and it is dirty. And I'm just going to say.
What are some of these smutty books so that I can avoid them?
So anytime someone says fairy smut.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is this like all the books that are like the Thorn and the Crown and this and that?
Fourth Wing, all those. Like, now I haven't read Fourth Wing, but I've heard that that's about the same level as
it's like 50 Shades of... I read like sci-fi stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So this is totally different.
Yeah, just put sci-fi in, but like maybe like some butt play or something.
Okay.
Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this is what when I see people like on an airplane, they're reading Fourth Wing. That means they're reading porn. Essentially.
Okay, we don't know. I haven't read Fourth Wing, but
I've
seen that
Thorn
in
and
the
crowns
joke
or
of
wings and hoofs or something.
Yeah, I'll never forget reading 50 Shades of Grey when it came out. And then a year later, walking into the kitchen and seeing the worst thing ever, my mother was reading it. I was like, no, like in slow motion going for it. But yeah, anyways, that's the one main thing is everyone's been like, what's the smut level? And I'm like, okay, look, my mother is a good Christian woman.
She's a Christian woman.
She is Southern Baptist.
Yeah.
I couldn't make the first one too dirty. But if y'all like it and you give me good reviews on Goodreads, I'll put more smut in the next one for you. I'll make it real sexy for you.
So then you think you'll write another book?
Oh, I will definitely write another book. It was so much fun. Now, I would love more than 2.5 months to do a year-long project.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of daunting. But, yeah, it was so much fun. It was like I went into this creative boot camp at the house, and I had to live within that world. I couldn't really live out of it. I feel like I was a very bad girlfriend during that time.
No, you were just busy.
Well, I just remember one night we went out for drinks, and you were like, so how's your week been? And I was like at the very end of the deadline. I was writing 10 hours a day at least, like just trying. I had to get it in by that deadline or it would not make it to come out with the album the way I wanted. And I just remember Kurt going, so how you going? You know, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. Why? Like, what do you mean? And he's like, it's the least I've ever talked to you ever since we've been dating. And I was like, I literally just woke up and I had my little chair in front of my fireplace in my kitchen and I had my iPad with my keyboard and I had my glasses and I would like sit there and just write.
It was insane to watch you do that because it's like, imagine sitting down for 10 hours. Couldn't do it like a day for weeks.
Like 15 minutes for me, I'm like.
Yeah.
I wish that I could have like somehow time lapsed it in the way that they would in like a cinematic movie of like how the boxes. I was also styling myself for some stuff coming up, so I'm shipping in all these boxes. And then my mom calls and she's like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I've ran out of beans. I've ran out of everything in the pantry. I got to go grocery shopping." And she's like, "I'll send you some Sam's Club beans." So I just have these giant boxes piling up around me as the time lapse goes, and I'm just staying there, just writing.
I've always wanted to do like a workout montage where I can just like work out a lot, but I don't have to actually do it, and you just pop out on the other side. And you're just like,
That sounds like my kind of workout.
Yeah, dude.
Why don't you talk about like how like so? I know we talked about this before, but like who you wrote the book with, like who helped you kind of craft the story.
So the coolest thing is when all this came to be, I won't lie, it's been really hard to talk about it in interviews because this came from a wish to want to write a book when I was younger. When I was 13, I started a book. When I was 15, I started a book. And at some point I told myself, like, you'll never get to do this. Just give up. This is silly. You're wasting time. And so I gave it up. And then at 30 years old, I get a phone call. This is the honest to God story. I get a call from my not business managers, my day-to-day managers, Courtney and Tess, and they said, "Hey, so the label is really excited about this, and we think that this will set the second record above and beyond. Gary heard about you wanting to base your music videos and stuff off of romance novels, and so he reached out to a literary agent, and they're willing to give you a deal to write a romance novel. What do you have?" And my hands started doing like the big shake. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like before the album comes out? And this is in November of this year, I think. Yeah, it was in November. And they're like, yeah, so they want to meet with you tomorrow to talk through the idea. And I was like, I can't do tomorrow. And so I said, just give me till Monday. It was a Thursday night when they called me. And so on Monday, I had a full idea. I had 25 pages of an outline of what the book would be, what are the main, topics and things I want to hit in it, and what emotions I want to come across, and how the songs will relate, and go chapter by chapter. But, that first meeting, I'm going into it, and I was kind of told, like, hey, you're going to hand your songs off to an author, and they're just going to write all of it. This is just like you're going to be teaming up with an author, not you're going to write the whole thing. And I go into that first meeting with a literary agent, and they're like, okay, so we are so excited to hear the idea and hear the whole outline. We were really surprised you took this on. Normally it takes 8 months to a year to get this going, and we have 2.5 months for everything to get to final proof. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And underneath the Zoom computer, my hands just, I'm just shaking the whole time. But it's one of those things that the child in me was like, isn't this what you've always wanted? and this is the timing you've been given, so use it. And I remember hearing about Doechii, actually, the last record that she put out, within 30 days, she was like, I'm going to write and create this entire record. And once those 30 days are over, I'm done. And that will be the record. And so I do look back now, and I think that was God working, that I had that long to create this album, or that long to create this book, not this album, because it made it so I could not truly overthink or doubt myself too much. I had to really be direct in, okay, let's get this point across. Let's get this story and dialogue right so it feels comfortable, and also tells all the different stories, the backstories of these songs as you go through it. And so when all this came to be, and I got off that first phone call on that Thursday night, and I was like, I have to write a book. And the reason why I was like, I have to, is because for your label to get excited for your second album, when the first one didn't pop off the way they wanted, you're like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, you can tell me to dance around like a little monkey if you say you're excited about the album, and I'm like, yay, I'm a little monkey. So yeah, seriously. So I was like, we got to do this. Like, I'm pumped. If my team's pumped, I can figure it out. But Carolyn Brown found out about it. And through her literary agent, I guess ours had connected, and said, you know what? I'm willing to come in and write it with her. You know, I can guide her. I can flesh out anything she needs. We will figure it out. And it was so cool that the first character I created, her name was Kathleen Scott, and she's this older lady that runs this Airbnb. It's like somewhere in Texas, and she grows the most beautiful roses. And it was named after this pseudo grandmother of mine that passed away, Kathleen, that we weren't related, but she was my grandmother, you know. And she had this beautiful garden, and at 90 years old, she could sit crisscross applesauce in her rocking chair and talk to you about anything. And she was a light in the world. And so I didn't think about the main protagonist at first, which you kind of need in a romance novel. I thought of the old lady in the romance novel first. And then I started talking to Carolyn, and the strength I was trying to inject in Kathleen as a character, I felt that in Carolyn, and the humor and the sass, and just something in my gut said, this is the person you're meant to write this book with. And so, I mean, she helped a childhood dream of mine come true. I could not have done it without her, I don't think. I could not have done it this way, especially, and made it this special. And so it was cool to write a book about a main protagonist that kind of looks like me, around my age, and going through things that I've went through, being led and guided by this older, wiser woman through her life. And that's exactly what Carolyn was for me. So it's about as special as it could be, I guess.
I think it's so cool. And I know, like, just talking with you, you talk about moments that seem right. And it's like, it seems
felt so right.
Yeah. It's fitting, you know? And it's like, you've lived your whole life to get to the songs that you have. And you took 5 years to get the record done. And it's almost like this is like a shout, right? Like, it's like a rant of a book in my, you know what I mean? Like, it's a sprint. After having so much time to kind of get the right songs and get them all produced right. But you had all the time spent on that music. You know, you got that exactly how you want it.
I'm so glad I had that time.
Yes.
I would not have wanted to make an album in 30 days. God bless you, Doechii.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell you did it.
Right.
Like, but yeah, it was, I think also it being the first one, the first book I ever wrote, I knew I would overthink it. So it was perfect that I had 5 years to come together with these songs. And then after making a sad song-centric, I guess, album, I get to also give them a happily ever after.
Yeah.
You know? I grew up a hopeless romantic. I still am. When I was like heartbroken or I was stressed out, I would play Sims. I would make things go right for these people, or I would read a romance novel and just know that these two people were written for each other. And in a world where I like to think, I truly do believe that we have soulmates and we're supposed to find those people, as much as psychologists will say there's no such thing, blah, blah, blah. I love the idea that in a book, there is such thing as a soulmate, because these two people were written with the intention of spending their lives together and finding each other. And I just love that. So I give you sad songs for inflection and reflection, and I give you a happily ever after for when you need it.
Yeah.
That's
Plus a little violence in there.
There's not too much violence. I took some of it out.
There's a little bit.
There's not violence.
No? A little. Well, I don't want to spoil anything from the book.
Don't spoil anything.
But there's some cool stuff in there, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Are you guys doing like book signing kind of stuff when it comes out?
Yeah, we're gonna do like book readings, which is really weird.
cool, though.
Because they're like, what excerpt? And I'm like, I don't know. I've
The
never
smuttiest
thought about
part.
that before. Normally they're like, what song off the record do you want to play for this round?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I just go to the dirtiest, worst one, and then I just end it. But yeah, so we're doing book signings and stuff. They will actually be coming out in June, so we'll be doing a double push.
Cool.
And audiobook?
Audiobook and ebook coming out on March 7th. So that would have already been. But anyways, yeah.
Ebook is like Kindle?
Yes, Kindle.
Okay.
Which my team was like, do you have a Kindle? And I was like, no.
I do.
I like a real book.
Kindles
I
are
want-
great, though.
Yeah, I just like to scribble in. I like to draw things and spit
know.
my gum in it.
Yeah.
Rip
yeah,
a page out. You know.
I get it. The Kindles are cool for certain things, obviously, but nothing beats having a paperback.
My team
No,
told me
real.
they're going to gift me a Kindle just so that I have it on ebook. And I was like, thank you. And then they were like, also, we're going to shoot some content with that. And I was like,
They're just always
I knew
the
it.
C word. Yeah.
I'll put my fake
Content.
eyelashes on.
Yeah.
Funny story. Seventh grade religion class, we had textbooks, like always, but we had like a textbook that we got to keep. And it was, so I doodled all through it and wrote stuff, highlighted things, but mostly doodled. When my teacher saw it, he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, you said we get to keep this. Like, I just, made it mine." He's like, "I'm going to fail you in this class."
What?
And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You defaced this thing." And I was like, "No, I didn't. Like, and we get to keep it. It's mine." So he made me write a prayer for every doodle that I put in the book. But it was actually kind of great because like coming up with a prayer based on silly Beavis and Butthead doodles, you know what I mean? Like was actually kind of great. So it was like an experience that made me remember it,
It stretched your creativity
Yes.
long before you knew how flexible it was.
Yes. Yeah. So it was very fun, but that reminded me of that a little bit because I kind of got scolded for doodling, and you always do as a kid. You're probably not doodling the correct stuff. Like I probably should have been drawing Beavis
Like,
and
was
Butthead.
that
in a
super
really
bad
just-
where he just draws dicks everywhere?
Yeah, I wasn't doing that. It wasn't like dirty, but Beavis and Butthead's dirty enough,
Bungolio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was that just reminded me of that, which is I didn't even realize like one of my core childhood memories,
Yeah. that's
Okay,
funny.
there's a weird thing I did as a kid that I was actually, we're doing the final edit of it, and I like had a gasp moment. I'm like, oh wow, this was a full circle I didn't anticipate. I had this weird like, I say kink, it's not sexual, but I would take I would take romance novels. And because romance novels are, a lot of it in the genre is low budget, so sometimes they don't even have an editor to go through and finesse. I would take a pen and I would write in my romance novels, and that's how like my Aunt Pumpkin or my mom would know that I'd read their romance novels. Is I'd be like, wrong verbiage there. That's past tense there. Also, this word has only one T in it. Okay. And for some reason, that made me really happy. And so going back and editing my own book with Carolyn, there was a little moment of, oh my God, I'm literally just childhood me with like more arthritis.
You don't
See,
have
I'm bringing back the
arthritis.
segue to
Yeah, I
arthritis.
I love it. That's so great. Well, do we want to go through the tracks?
Yeah, let's just pop in.
Yeah.
Just give us a little
Yeah, sure.
liners or something if you want. You want to go in album order or book order?
Ooh. Let's do album order. Okay. Bed of Roses. Sorry, I took your list.
No, you're fine.
Bed of Roses was the last song I wrote for this record. Honestly, I had the title, Bed of Roses, and I was like, this is an album. There's something here. There's something special. It really personifies what I'm trying to get across in this. But I did not have the song, and it's the only time in my life that I went into write, and I went, okay, Jeff Hyde, Benji Davis, two great acclaimed writers. If we don't write this right, I'm taking the idea back, and I'm sorry, but I have to make this song work to be a title track because it has to be Bed of Roses. And I mean, Jeff Hyde does this thing where he'll start pacing in the room, and I just know that's when I know he's really he's working up a good one. And we're talking through the chorus, Benji and I, and he goes, He said he couldn't put roots down. Tears fell on fertile ground. Little does he know, I've been sitting here watching him grow. And I'm like, holy shit, Jeff. Why did I ever doubt that we weren't going to get this? Anyway, I love both of them. They're incredible. Next song. You want me to just scroll through? Sorry.
Go through. No, take it.
Breaking Dishes, it was one I wanted to kind of make it feel like a drunk New Orleans funeral at the end. I had a video where a woman watches an entire house burn down and you think it's her, but then it's not her, and then she does a weird creepy Joker dance. But we only had an $800 budget for that, so I had to film inside and I couldn't burn a house down, so shit happens. Next song on the record.
You're on a roll. Keep going.
What My Angels Think of Me came from a deep hypnosis meditation that if I go into is like a whole other podcast on its own. But I came into the right that day with Jake Mitchell and Meg McCree, and I was like, I had this moment where in my meditation, I feel as if I met my guardian angels. I saw them, and then I started getting psyched out about what are they thinking of me? What are they thinking of me? And I was talking about at the time, I was talking to someone that wasn't spiritual and was actually kind of against it. And I remember feeling that start with, I said something about, it's a full moon, like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this star is big right now. Jupiter's out. And he goes, I don't believe in all that stuff. And I saw myself just shut the door and go, all right, well, latch that bolt, batten down the hatches. And I started noticing that every time I was with someone that wasn't as spiritual as me or against it, I lessened myself. I was less of myself and the things that make me happy to be what I thought they wanted, to be approved by them, accepted. And so I'm telling her all about this, about how I worried what my angels thought of me. And Meg McCree goes, that's the song. I wonder what my angels think of me. And so the first lines of the song is, we never talked about the stars that much. You always said you don't believe in that stuff. So I kept my visions to myself. Love is a dog from hell. Still, I believe God means well. And so I got to put a Charles Bukowski book in there. Love is a Dog from Hell is one of my favorite books ever. Anyway, next song. Sorry, I'm taking your podcast.
No,
this
no one cares about
podcast.
us.
They tune in for a reason, honey. Back Again is the one on the record that I had to record many, many a time because my manager, Mary, shout out to you. She said, you're singing it like Judy Garland would, and you sound like an old lady on Broadway. You gotta sound a little younger. I was really, really dramatic the first few times we recorded it, but it feels like Back Again is the most dramatic song on this record. And please, God, for the love of me, notice that What My Angels Think of Me and Back Again blends into one another because it makes me so happy, and I live for things like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. That feels good to have that out. Anyways, number 5 is Mamas. Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Love Cowboys. I had lost a musical cousin of mine, and I had found out while I was throwing pottery with my friend Mia Mantilla. And I went out to get the phone call and find out that he had passed away. And he was one of the only musical cousins of mine, but he had passed away from MS, and he had been fighting it for 20, 25 years. After having the first 30 years of his life, he was perfectly able-bodied and then lost it all. So he really struggled at the end. But he always had a smile on his face, and I loved him. And anyways, I found out that my fan club and all of that was the same day as his funeral, and I was not going to be able to come home. And so I went back into the garage, and Mia saw I was crying after the phone call, and she asked if I needed to go home. I said, no, there's like no point for me to go home. I can't go home to Georgia. I'm just going to sit at my house in Nashville and cry. So just play me something. Play a song that you love, that you have been excited about writing recently. And she played me Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Love Cowboys. And I just had this resounding gut feeling of, Matthew would love this. Matthew would have loved this song and thought it was so clever the way she turned it around and told the woman's perspective of loving the man that always rides away. And so I cut it for him, and it felt right. And it's the very first outside cut I've ever had. And I'm so honored that Trent, SJ, and Mia were willing to let me take this song and try to give it wings in my own way. So shout out to y'all. No, I Ain't is Sorry, I feel like I'm giving a lecture.
No. This is great.
No, I ain't was the broken heart mantra. There's so many times in the Bible that it says something along the lines of how your words have power. And then in my favorite childhood movie, Labyrinth, that's exactly what David Bowie says. His character says, words have power, Sarah. Be careful. And I think that the things we say to ourselves when we're heartbroken and we're trying to heal, it either hurts us or it heals us. Every single thing you say. And you get to decide whether you're going to make today heaven or hell for yourself most times. And so, no, I ain't. I wanted to create a song that all it is something that you can say to yourself over and over again until you choose yourself instead of the person that's not really choosing you. And I hope that if someone's going through a heartbreak, that song helps, because the only reason I shared that vulnerable of a song is because I hope that you can listen to that and be strong in building your boundary and finding the thorns on the rose. 7 is The Hill, and I just love this song dearly. I wrote it with Tennille Towns and Logan Wall. We wrote it during 2020 over Zoom. I was in a really weird disassociated state during that time, and I remember, though...
Most of us were, I feel like.
I remember writing that song, though, and going, there's something special here, but not knowing what to do with it. And we kind of just held on to it, and finally, it felt as if this was the right project for it. So I'm so proud of it, and it was so much fun to kind of give it some Celtic influence and spice, a little zest in theirs. Then I have number 8 on the record, Pot in the Kettle. I wrote it with Stephen Wilson Jr. and Connor James Thuett, and I had rented a little place in Leapers Fork, which is kind of south, I guess, of Nashville, and anyways, we would just get inebriated and write things, and I'd call my friends to come down and write songs with me. And so we randomly came up with that. I don't remember how, but one of us said, the pot in the kettle, that's the pot calling the kettle black. And then someone thought that we said pot called the kettle back. And then we were like, well, gee whiz, that's a song. So there you go. Okay, the next one is my favorite. It's my absolute favorite. It's Bread and Butter. And then I can't say it.
Bread and Butter.
Bread and Butter.
Yeah.
I wrote that with Jeff Hyde and Luke Dick, and it was a very funny moment of feeling like a complete idiot. Jeff went into his pacing again, and I knew something good was coming. But he stops, and he turns around and looks at me and Luke as we're trying to figure out the beat and kind of the swagger of it, and he goes, I don't go where escargot. I don't know what caviar. And I remember just being like, that's really smart, escargot. Go. Wow. Okay. I don't know what caviar are. Is that right? And he goes, no, I don't know what caviar. And I argued with this man for like 3 minutes before my dumbass realized, no, the joke is I don't know what cavi are. I don't know what they are. I am an idiot. And I'm so glad I get to write with smart people.
That happened to Luke, actually. He had a song called Share If You Want To. And when it got put on iTunes, this is showing how old the song is. They put Sheriff If You Want To. and then I think Tyler King's the one that noticed it. He's like, hey, boss, it says Sheriff If You Want To instead of Share If You Want To. Caviar R.
Yeah.
Words are hard.
Words are really hard sometimes. Cleopatra is based off fake news that I learned. At least I think it's fake news because I've never found anything to factually back it up. But also I've never found anything calling that saying a filthy liar. But supposedly...
What's the story?
Yeah, well, this one time... Cleopatra was actually the pharaoh of Egypt at the time when she got the word that Rome was going to invade. And so she told all of her sailors to prepare the ships, and they took the masses down and they dipped them in rose water and let them dry and hung them back up. She got all of her female servants to go and gather all the roses that they could possibly find, cut them, bring them to the ship, and we load up and we leave today. So she wanted to meet them in Rome and not allow them to come to Egypt first. She shows up, and it's kind of a sense of royalty. It's an obligation that if royalty visits, they are put in the palace with the rest of the royalty. So she shows up, and Mark Anthony's like, oh, hi. Puts her up in the castle, and supposedly the servants filled the room with rose petals to the point that it was up to their knees. And so then they send a letter out to Mark Anthony to come to her room, and she's laying there naked on the bed, surrounded and covered in rose petals. And supposedly they had this like romantic tryst that night, and she made him make an agreement that he would never invade Egypt as long as she was pharaoh. And afterwards, supposedly the reason why she did all of that with all of the roses is every single time that he smells a rose, he will remember our union and he will remember the agreement that he gave me. And I was like, holy shit. The thought of being able to Pavlovianly make someone think about you every single time they smell something. I'm like, that's power.
It's like psychic warfare.
Wow. So it was really cool to write a country song about Cleopatra. I'll be honest, I wrote it for myself. Did not think anyone on my team would care for it or would think it's too cerebral, too convoluted. And I wanted to put Pavlovian into a song and the word trigger warning. It felt so cool to be able to put some of those words into a country song. Mm-hmm. So Cleopatra is, we don't know if it's fake news or not, but you can believe it if you want, baby. Okay.
All right.
Next is How Long. It's like really the only true love song I feel like on this record in the grand scheme. But I wrote it with Lucy Silvis and John Osborne. And Lucy made us scones with clotted cream and jam that day, and I'll never forget that. And yeah, it was just a beautiful day. And that guitar riff, that vocal riff is something that I have to give John credit for that. He was the one that, he's the one that came up with it. And I kept telling him, I was like, it's too damn hard to sing. And he was like, you can sing it. And so I'm glad he pushed me to sing it. Yep.
That's in the bridge. Go check that out. It's awesome. It's like your Tennessee whiskey riff.
I think that's what John was trying to do with it.
Yeah, it's badass.
The last two songs on this record kind of go a little bit hand in hand as far as I felt this thing. They aren't connected as far as the story, but I do feel as if they just sit together sonically. Oh, Kara, I was listening to a lot of Kenny Rogers, and one of my favorite songs in the entire world is from the band Looking Glass, Brandy. And then I was listening to Lucille, Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, Lady, like all these different songs. And I realized a lot of the ones that I love, it's a woman's name. And at that point, I'll be honest, I had just went through a breakup with a long distance relationship thing, and beautiful man, about as smart as a sack of bricks. And I just remember, this is my warning to women listening, or men, dating men. When you go on your first date, ask the person how they view their ex. What was their last relationship like? Because I've learned that if the first thing they do is they call their exes crazy, you will be a crazy ex one day, even if you don't do anything wrong.
Yes.
It's just their exes will have to be enemies in their minds, nemesis, you know? And I just remember on this date, it was one of my first times ever asking a guy out myself and being like, "Are you single?" And I was like, "Look at me, I'm on fire. I'm doing it. Like, I'm a boy." And anyways, that's a good.
No.
Anyway, but I remember asking him, "How do you view your last relationship?" And he said, "Like we had a tumultuous ending, but I'm so grateful. I've learned so much from her and all of this." And I was like, "Oh,
nice.
That's good." Mm-hmm. And 2 months later, over the phone one day, he's cleaning out a storage unit he had to clean out, and he found a storage container of her stuff. And he goes, "Well, I guess I got to go see that bitch again."
Oh.
And I remember just being like, what happened in 60 days? That now she's a bitch, not somebody that has grown with you, and you're grateful for that time with them. And I remember saying, I went, I don't like that. I don't like you calling her that. And he said, "Well, you don't know what she's like. You don't know her." And that was a moment I was like, okay, all right, I get it. I have been with a man that everyone I would go to and say, he's mean. Like some of the things he says, it hurts my feelings. And they would go, "Well, he's a catch in this town. You need to hold on to him. He's just got some growing up to do." So I went to that place in my head when he said that. I said, "Well, you know what? I don't know her. Women can be just as mean as men." So my thing is, I was like, I'll step back. And then he said it again. And just something in me was like, nope, the red flags now, or that's a whole bouquet of them. And so when that broke up because communication issues, and I remembered him saying that she used to get so on to him about not being able to communicate well. And so I wrote, "Oh, Kara," and it's just, "Oh, Kara, I see what you're saying. He ain't saying very much at all." And yeah, just kind of wrote it out of nowhere. I liked on the last record putting out a song called Gold and having it so that it's just me and a microphone and my guitar, and it's just me as far as production and also singing and lyric. So Okara is the broken down gold soundtrack, I guess, of this record. But I'm sorry, Kara, I actually used your real name and I almost didn't. But then I was like, screw him. You didn't do anything wrong. I hope you deserve and you get good love. Shout out to Kara.
Shout out to Kara.
Okay, the last song on this record, it's personally my favorite. Now, I tell people to go listen to No I Ain't because that is the focus track. That is the one that we have a music video for, and I'm really excited for it, and I feel like it's going to help a lot of people. But this song made me happy because I was listening to a lot of Mama Cass at the time, and there's a song that she does called Please Don't Let the Good Life Pass You By. And it just has this one little riff that's so cool, as Kurt would call a line cliche, right?
Good memory.
But anyways, I was listening to this song and started playing along with it. And I realized, well, if I went to this instead, if I went to the 6 minor here instead, or, and I started playing around with it. And then I realized that I'm writing a song. And I had just recently went to my therapist, the guy who does the meditations with me, that What My Angels Think of Me came from. And I was talking to him about someone that it was just, thank God it didn't work out. But I remember wanting it to, and you're like, well, maybe he's just conflicted because, he just feels such big feelings for me. Maybe that's why he's not ready to commit. And I know, the silly things, the things you will try to talk yourself into.
It's like girl math, but for relationships.
Exactly. Just so that you can not accept that they don't want you the way you want them. Just admit it. Well, I wasn't able to admit it at that point. And I'm telling Marv all about it. And he cut me off and he goes, you got to shut up about the tumbleweed men. You got to understand that there are some people that they are meant to never place roots with you. And they're not going to, even if you hold them down and still in one place and you build a garden around them, they're not going to stay. And he was like, you need to realize and be able to step away and see a tumbleweed pass by on the scenery of your life and go, oh, wow, look, a tumbleweed. That was nice. And let it roll into the sunset, and you keep walking. And it took me many months after that to get around to understanding, but I went home right after that and started writing that song. And then it just came to be out of this Mama Cass riff, and it's probably one of my favorites because the coolest thing is tumbleweed men. I think of the people that I've loved that didn't love me as much, or the people that I just couldn't be the right person for them. All the wrong people at the exactly right times for the lessons that we both needed to learn. But when I played it for a friend of mine, she started crying, and I asked, is it about your ex? And I named him, and she goes, no, I just realized through this song that the first tumbleweed man I've ever loved was my father. And she goes, and that's why it hit so hard. And that is when I was like, this is the power of music. Sometimes we don't get to hear this. We don't get to feel it and see how a song can mean something to us and then mean something even deeper or just as meaningful to someone else. But I started writing out that night. I started writing out a music video of a little girl going to the bar with her daddy and then going to that same bar trying to find a man when she gets older and kind of going through those things and those images she gave me. And I really appreciate when people DM me and tell me about how they relate to these songs and stuff. So if you're listening and you connect to these songs, I would love to hear what your opinion is or what your story is and why it hits you. But Tumbleweed Men is probably one of my favorites on the record for sure.
Love it.
But yeah, so Bed of Roses is just an accumulation of my stories and the lessons I've learned and the love I've got to experience and the heartbreak that came as well. And I hope that someone feels solace in it. So yeah.
Well, congrats on the album release.
Thank y'all so much for letting me just rant for a little bit. That felt so good.
Yeah, it's great.
It's always great, and honestly, I just love listening to how your brain works too.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Yeah,
good brain.
I like y'all's brains too.
Thanks.
Well, that was awesome.
Well, I would like to tell people to go onto your DSPs, your internet music stations, and to follow Caylee on Apple and Spotify and Amazon and Napster and
buy
Pandora.
the book. in
Get the book
physical
on-
format, so you
on
can
Kindle.
doodle.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, what else? I've learned because we
Oh.
went to Apple Music and
Yeah,
they said,
talk about that because then just all young artists need to hear this and be doing this.
okay, I'll try.
Do it.
So something that's huge for your growth as an artist is if you can get your fans to go on your page on Apple Music or on, I'm sure Spotify and Amazon, all these folks have it too, and favorite your favorite artist.
Favorite and follow.
Yes. And that does great for their playlisting and their music and numbers and all that fancy jazz.
And that way it can be an artist that you followed years ago that hasn't put, say, music in 5 years out. And the algorithm will actually upload it and share it and get it, more accessible
Yes.
for you. So young artists, please go and share and let folks know that they need to favorite and follow. And it will help you a lot because when one of the big dogs at Apple is like, you need to do this, I'm like, yes, ma'am.
We will do this.
Yep. So yeah, just follow along. Just follow us everywhere, just not home.
Yes, true. And now you could follow her on Twitch if you want to watch her play some.
I'm playing Sims. I'm creating the town of Homestead. So
That's so
come
cool.
and figure out that damn lamp with me.
Or just ask questions and hang out.
Yeah, you can also just distract me and tell me about your day. That's what we've been doing a lot recently.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
I'm super thankful to have you on the pod, and thank you so much for spending your time out here with us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Yay.
Yay.
All right, y'all. Well, my name's Kurt Ozan.
I'm Nicky T.
And we'll see you on the front row. Thank you, Caylee.
Yeah.